Greetings to our Adventist family and Mpumakapa TV viewers. My name is Jongimpi Papu, President of the Seventh-day Adventist Church in the Cape Conference. Cape Conference is composed of Northern Cape, Eastern Cape, and Western Cape. I want to welcome you to our brand new show, Rays of Hope, Masikhanye. Some of you would know that we were broadcasting on Mpumakapa TV for the greater part of last year. There's been a break. Now we're coming with this brand new show, which seeks to focus on hope. It is going to be different. Last time when we were broadcasting, we were focusing on sermons and having different preachers who were preaching on different subjects, sharing messages from the Bible. But it's going to be more like a lifestyle show where we're going to be having panelists and looking at all aspects of our lives as individuals, as communities. What we want to do, and the Bible says we are the light of the world. We want to diffuse light in the form of hope in this seemingly hopeless environment we live in. So that's the purpose of the program, is to bring hope to our seemingly hopeless situation. I like how Zechariah 9:12 depicts this concept of hope, where it says we are prisoners of hope, referring to Israel, ancient Israel, as prisoners of hope, that in spite of the fact that they were in captivity, but there was always hope bubbling in our hearts, that something new, an expectation, an anticipation of something better, something new was always on the horizon. And in many ways, we can also look at our own situation and actually assert that we are in captivity. I mean, to some extent, understandably so, that you are not allowed to embrace people you haven't seen for some time. You have to keep social distance. You cannot stay longer than so many hours. Even with your friends, you have to avoid crowds. And some of us are social animals. We thrive in crowds. But because of the captivity we're in, we cannot do that. So we want to give hope, even in that form of captivity, that things will get better. We will overcome the virus and we will live our normal lives once more. We are, in many ways, faced with a hopeless situation. I mean, families are breaking, there's crime, there's corruption, even in the church, in the government, in the society, in the public sector. And hope then seeks to say to us, it's not over, we can come together. We can conquer. There's not only the virus, the COVID-19 virus, there's virus of crime, there's virus of immorality and ethics. And we can conquer this virus as we work together as a community and as a family. And I want to say to you that this program seeks to add and contribute, as many others are also doing, to the welfare of our community. And I want to let you know that the hope that we are bringing is not only hope for the now, it is also hope for the hereafter. Of course, we have to focus on the now, how to equip us to be resilient, how to deal with challenges, how to have strong families, how to have better communities. But beyond that, there's the hereafter as well. How to prepare for the world that is to come, how to be ready for the soon coming of Christ, how to focus on each other as we look forward to a future that is better than the present. This is our hope, that this program will be a blessing in many ways to our families and to our country. So we have an appointment. Stay tuned. Every Saturday at this time, this is going to be playing. There will be, of course, repeats that will be announced. So the appointment is, let's gather together. Let's listen, let's reflect, and let's see how far we can go by God's grace. God bless you.
Welcome to this week's edition of Rays of Hope Masikhanye, a show that is aimed at separating light from darkness and to give us hope in our daily lives. The word of the Lord tells us in Psalms 115, verse 109, "Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path." I invite you this week to join me as we will be using the light that God has given us, even in the show, as we share the knowledge that we have with our visitors. With me, I have Annelisa Nomake, who is joining us on the show, and is going to be talking to us about the impact of COVID-19 on economy. Welcome, Ms. Annelisa.
Thank you, Prof.
Who is Annelisa and what are you doing?
Thank you, Prof. I am a wealth manager based in Port Elizabeth. So basically, I've got a master's degree in economics, and I've recently also done postgrad qualification in financial planning. So that's a bit of my background.
That's lovely. So you deal with wealth,
Yes.
Okay. Just paint a picture to our viewers of what was the situation in terms of economics in South Africa before COVID-19.
Prof, for many countries, when COVID hit, it interrupted a positive growth cycle. But with us, on the other hand, we were incredibly vulnerable already. We were in the middle of a recession. We had high unemployment rates. We were about to be downgraded. And the last time we had seen a budget surplus was in 2007. And by that, I mean the last time government actually spent less than they receive was back in 2007. So the situation was quite dire already.
You're talking of big words. What do you mean by recession, that we were in recession? What does that mean? And when were we in recession?
Okay, so a recession is basically if an economy has got 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth, then you'll go into a recession. In basic terms, it means that we are in trouble. You're likely to see job losses, which is what we did see. Remember that we already had high unemployment rates before 2020. So then things just escalated, obviously when the pandemic hit. But in efforts to try and stimulate the economy, you'll see interventions such as the rates getting cut. You'll see a change in taxes. You'll see a change in government spending as well. Those are all just efforts to try and improve the economy and just to try and stimulate the economy again.
So you say that South Africa was going to be downgraded. What does that mean? What is the impact of being downgraded?
Okay, so we've got what we call credit rating agencies. The major ones being Standard & Poor, we've got Moody's, and we've got Fitch. So what they basically do is they measure how likely a country is to default in debt. So it's basically measuring the credit worthiness of a country. So why this is important is it will impact the rate that you will pay back your debt. So we were at a stage where we were seen as risky to give debt to. Therefore, obviously meaning that whatever interest we're paying back will be considerably higher than other countries.
Just for my viewers, I just want to understand this very well. You're saying they were checking whether we're credit-worthy. Is it the same way that when I go to Woolworths, when I go somewhere, they check whether I'm credit-worthy and then they decide to give me? Is this what it entails?
It's a very basic, a similar process. The same way that we've got our credit bureaus, etc., countries have the credit rating agencies that also look at things like their credit worthiness and. Yeah.
So that you mean even before COVID-19, they looked at us in South Africa and they were saying we're not creditworthy and they were downgrading us.
Even before. I think that the Moody's downgraded us in March, and that was round about when COVID hit. But all other rating agencies had already downgraded us. We were literally just waiting for the Moody's one.
So we're in trouble, so to speak. Our economy was bad, unemployment rate was high,
exactly.
And this is what we went through. So obviously the pandemic worsened everything.
Yes, that's correct, Prof. So obviously we had the lockdown, and that really affected economic growth. It affected economic activity. We saw how the government debt just worsened. We saw what happened with unemployment rates. But also, this period also highlighted the importance of of households, of government, and of businesses, the importance of them all having access to financial resources to help cope with uncertainties like we experienced. Now, the problem was that South Africa's savings rates were extremely low, even before COVID happened.
Okay.
Why is this important? So from a macroeconomic perspective, national savings are important because it helps the development of the country. If we're looking at it from a business perspective, your savings levels are important because they will determine whether a business will be able to survive in times of a crisis. And at household level, savings will literally be a determining factor, or it can make a difference between life and death in situations like we've seen in the previous year. But the problem is many of us don't have a backup plan.
That's so true.
That is very, yeah, so there was actually a study that was done last year throughout the course of the year where they looked at consumers. These are all people that were employed. They basically asked the question that if you were to lose your income, so if you were to get retrenched or if you were to lose your job, the amount of available funds you currently have, how long would these funds sustain you? And there was just under 40% of them that said that they would only be able to survive about a month or even less. So I think more than anything, the pandemic just exposed us as a country. But I on a more better note, I do suspect that people do want to change. They do want to change how they approach maintaining a buffer for uncertainties. I'm finding that more people are looking at alternative ways of generating incomes and not just sticking to one income stream. You're finding that people are actually looking at what are their skills and how can I use this to generate income for myself. As much as we're in the middle of a crisis, but there are companies, big companies that are today worth billions that were started during a financial crisis, during a time of recession. I'll name a few for you, Prof. You've got, for example, Airbnb. Okay. It was started during the 2008 financial crisis. You've got Netflix, which was started during the 97 crisis. And you've got Microsoft, that was started during the 1975 crisis. You see, these are all companies that are today worth billions, but they were started during times of uncertainties and times of crisis. And we've got similar success stories in South Africa as well. So basically what I think I'm saying is when many see a crisis, it can be an opportunity for some people to see an opportunity.
I like that you are not leaving us hopeless. You are saying to us, there is something that we can get from this crisis, and it's something that can actually be positive. I mean, for 40% of the community to be able to survive if they are retrenched on whatever they have, that's really, really too low. And now you are giving us hope. You are saying we can actually start something, even in the midst of the pandemic. These are the rays of hope that we're talking about. This is Masikhanye, and this is what we want. We want our community to go out and be rays of hope and give hope to the hopeless. I was very worried when you spoke of 40%, but I'm happy now that you are giving us the rays of hope. Now tell me, if one wants to start saving or to start something, how can one do that?
Prof, I think most importantly, what I'm going to start with is saying that saving is a learned behavior. So the only
I like that. I like that.
So the only way you can get into the habit of saving is to actually start the habit. So it requires discipline. I'm going to mention 4 things that people can look into just briefly. The first one being what I think everyone is comfortable with, your normal savings deposits that you get at a bank. People can just talk to your bank and find out what products are available for you there. This one usually has no minimum amounts. You literally will invest or you'll save whatever amount you are comfortable investing.
So in other words, you're saying, whatever I have, I must learn not to use all of it.
Exactly.
There must be something that I keep and save, and that includes or entails discipline.
Exactly. And then with the savings deposits, though, or the money market accounts, what I'm going to focus or stress rather is the fact that this is usually for your shorter term investments, right? So We'll remember that during the 2020 year, we had the Reserve Bank lowering our rates by 3% in total. So this is good if you are repaying debt. But then if you're someone who's saving money, then it means that where you were last year getting between 6.5 to 7% in the money market account, this year you're getting between 3.5 to 4%.
Can I take you back?
Sorry?
Can I take you back? What is inflation? Because you're talking of the Reserve Bank and the inflation. What is inflation?
Okay. So inflation is basically the level of, it's the level that prices will increase by over a period of time. That's actually quite relevant to what I'm talking about, Prof, because when you are wanting to save over a long-term period, you usually will not want to keep your funds in a cash investment or a money market investment because it won't likely beat inflation. As we said, that's how much prices of things increase by over a period of time. So you want to make sure that whatever you're investing over a long period of time is going to beat that inflationary amount. So then you will look at other alternatives, which are the second thing I'm going to be talking about is a unit trust. But obviously, with the next three things I'm going to be talking about, I'm going to stress that people need to speak to a financial advisor so that you can navigate what is appropriate for you. Because investing is not a one-size-fits-all solution. You need something that's going to be appropriate for you. Okay, we're talking about a unit trust. Now, what is a unit trust? This is basically a portfolio of investments that are broken up into units. So when you buy into a unit trust, you're buying units of this portfolio of investments. Why is this good? It's good in the sense that it gives you easy access to financial markets as a whole, because you can get access to equities, you can get access to property, to bonds, and to cash-like investments. You've got the comfortability of knowing that your money is being managed by a professional. You've got diversification in that you know that your funds are not just limited to South Africa, but you've got assets that are based in other countries as well. That's part of this unit trust fund that you've got. And it's relatively easy to get into. So you will, most institutions will have a start out of about 500 Rand, but I think there are some that start at about 200 odd. Then the other one, just also important to note to this one, you're not locked in. So if you're wanting to exit or take your money for whatever reason, you can do that. If you're wanting to add, you can do that whenever. So you're not restricted. Then the other one I'm going to talk about is a tax-free saving, which is exactly that. Usually, if you've got a normal investment, you'll have capital gains taxed, you'll have your income taxed, and you'll have dividends that are taxed. But with a tax-free savings account, you don't have any of that. And you are limited then to invest into a tax-free savings account up to 36,000 per year. This increased last year from 33,000 because the government wants us to save.
Okay.
And then over your lifetime, you are limited to a maximum of 500,000 Rand. And then moving swiftly, the last one we're going to be talking about is a retirement annuity. So what a retirement annuity is, another problem actually that we have in South Africa is the fact that a majority of us are not saving enough to retire comfortably. So retirement annuity is something that you can use to supplement your retirement savings. If you're self-employed, for example, you don't have an employment fund, you can put money into a retirement annuity. It works similar to a pension fund, so you generally won't be able to access these funds before you reach the age of 55, subject to a few exceptions. You've got the tax benefits as well. So it's something to really look into if you're wanting to save for retirement. Just lastly, Prof, I think what is important to note is that I think what tends to intimidate a lot of people is the fact that they think that you need large sums of money to start investing. Whereas we've seen here that you can start literally from no minimums to, say, a maximum of 500 Rand, a minimum to start off with. So it is doable.
I like that. I like that. It's you've mentioned that with the pandemic, there's something positive that you can do in terms of economy. And again, you're emphasizing that in terms of savings, we need to be disciplined. and you can start with any amount that we have. And I think that's exactly what we need to hear and what we need to send out to the community, that we need to save so that we can retire comfortably. We also need to save so that we're able to go out and service other people and be the rays of hope. To the viewers at home, don't go away. Thank you, Annalisa. We will be right back after the break. Thank you. Welcome back to the Rays of Hope, a show that is designed for you and to separate light from darkness. With me right now, I've got Pastor Lifume, who is joining me, and we will be talking about the church and the finance during the pandemic. Welcome, Pastor Lifume.
Thank you, Prof.
Where do you work?
I work for the Cape Conference of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. I serve as a ministerial secretary, where I work with pastors. I also serve as a stewardship director, as you will see on my branding. And I also work with chaplaincy.
Okay, lovely. What is stewardship? What is entailed in stewardship?
Well, I'll give you a nutshell definition of stewardship. Stewardship is all of me in response to all of God.
Okay, that's nice. All of me in response to
all of God.
To all of God. Okay. Yes. So you work for the church. You are a stewardship director for the church. What is a church? Indoni Nkonzo.
Inkonzo. I think the scripture gives expressions as means in Nkonzo, like Acts 20:28, it is a church of God. Ephesians 4:12, it is the body of Christ. 1 Timothy 3:15, it is the church of the living God. It is God's intention to aqokelela abantu from far corners of the earth, brings them together into a body of which he is the living head. That's the church.
Is it important for one to belong to a church?
Oh, yes. It is very important for one to belong to a church, because to belong to a church, it is a privilege that is unique. And it is soul satisfying belonging in a church, because it is where you get to fellowship with other human beings. And as that body of Christ, all the children of God gather together, form that body of Christ, of which he is the head. They fellowship amongst each other, with one another. And of course, as a corporate body and as individuals, they build a relationship with the Lord, which is the head of the church. So they also get an opportunity to fellowship with him.
Okay, which means, therefore, that during this pandemic, fellowship is very important. We know that human beings are social beings and they need to socialize and fellowship. So you are saying to me the church plays a vital role in terms of not only spiritual support, but also fellowship amongst members.
Yeah.
And tell me, what is the role of a pastor then, or a spiritual leader during this pandemic?
Yeah. No, Prophet, is very, very heavy on spiritual leaders at a time such as this. Because remember, this is a time where people grieve alone. And those that are sick, they are by themselves. They cannot be visited by their loved ones. So the support system that is needed should, first of all, be spearheaded by spiritual leaders, which is what ministers do at a time such as this. Therefore, the loneliness plays a huge role in a person suffering by themselves. So that's where we come in as ministers and minister, counsel, pray with and for those that are going through that kind of an experience. So it is definitely what we do at a time such as this.
I have seen in various churches that I've visited that even though you have mentioned ukuthi umfundisi is there for spiritual support and other things, but I do see that at times there's a time set aside for collection. And the deacons will go through and collect. Why? Why should we give offerings?
Oh, okay. Well, the Word of God tells us we can't come before God empty-handed. So when we give offerings, it is our opportunity to worship God with the finances He has blessed us with. So it's part of worship to give offerings. So this is why we have that slot, and it is also called, it's a service, because we have an opportunity of thanking God for the blessings He has bestowed on us. And we give offerings out of gratitude of what God has blessed us with. So it is our opportunity to say to God, Lord, thank you for the blessings you've bestowed on me. And therefore I give this offering for the furtherance of your cause.
I like Psalms 116 verse 12. David says, what shall I repay to the Lord for all his goodness towards me? In other words, ndingambuyisela ngantoni na uYehova kuko konke ukuniphatha kwakhe kakuhle. Meaning, we have to say thank you. There is a way to say thank you. That's why in Malachi 3 verse 10 says, bring the tithes, everything into the storehouse. So we have a responsibility as members, and we have a duty as members to give to the church.
The good thing about that is that God is not just expecting from us. He first gives us something.
And then He expects.
Then He expects. So, siqale sikhongozele kuqala phambi koba sinikele. So, inazi into enhle ngaloo nto. uThixo akalindelanga mntu makamnike into engenanto. Uqala amnike into agqiba athi zikhethele ke ngoku ixabiso lam lingakanani na kuwe.
I like this. It's just like a child. You know, you buy a child a sweet, umniki. And then after umnikile, umbone into yoba uyakuthanda na, okanye aka-appreciate, uphinde ucele, umbone how selfish he or she is.
Yes.
So iyafana nathi, God gives us good gifts. And I think it's important for us into yoba siphinde simnikele.
Yes.
Tell me, what's the role of the congregants okanye abantu benkonzo in terms of supporting the church financially during this pandemic?
It's very vital. It's very vital. First of all, when we give offerings, we are not procuring service. So when we give those offerings, as I have said, it helps in the furtherance of God's cause. And of course, in the pandemic, there's a whole lot of things that needs to happen. Abantu baphelelwa imisebenzi, therefore, ukutya kuzawungabikho, into zokombatha zizawungabikho. Ifuneke ngoku ibandla lingenelele apho. Lizawungenelela njani xa lingena ziminzi zokwenje njalo. So when we bring offerings to the church, we are enabling the church to be God's feet, going to meet the needs of those that are in need, particularly at a time such as this, and which is why our church, under the wing or the umbrella of Meals on Wheels and ADRA, that's what we do for the community out there, so that we are able to give to God's people, because we are His hands. We are His feet, going to them, His hands, giving them something that is going to assist them at a time such as this. So therefore, it is important for us to support the church with offerings, so that the church in turn supports the people of God who are in need.
Should we be giving our tithes and offerings even though we don't attend church? I mean, the church has been closed for a month.
Yes.
Should we still contribute and take our offerings?
Oh yes, it's a definite yes, because as I said, we're not buying services by returning tithe. The word, the operative word is return. Siyabuyisa. It never belonged to us in any way. So we bring back to God that which belongs to Him in terms of tithe. And then when it comes to offerings, this is where we are now saying, God, you are worth this much to me. This is how I show my gratitude. And when we do that, then we give the wheels of pushing the mission of God. Remember, the church as in and of itself does not have a mission. The mission is the mission of God, the Missio Dei. It is the mission of God. As a church, we participate in God's mission. So how?
Which is go ye therefore.
Exactly. Now, participate in the mission. We need those funds. So when we give offerings and return the tithe, we are actually furthering God's cause, supporting His mission that the church now that we belong to is participating in finding the lost, in feeding the hungry, clothing those that need clothing. We need the mission to go on, and for it to go on, it needs wheels, and therefore these offerings and tithes are the wheels to further this cause.
I like that. I like the fact that we have a mission. Ekufuneka sithi carry through.
Oh yes.
That you go ye therefore and make disciples. And we can't make disciples, we can't fulfill the mission if we don't invest on ways of making sure that this mission is carried through. Now, a lot has been said about churches and their finances during this pandemic. People unhappy, people saying no, we should not be, people saying no, the church is not supportive. What do you have to say to the viewers who are actually not understanding the whole mission and the ways of giving back what God has given us?
Okay. Well, the church, as I have said, we give to the community because we have to. We are the hands of God, as I have said. In our case, we have the wing that I have already mentioned, Meals on Wheels. This is when we take meals, we put it on wheels, and we take it to the people. We feed the hungry.
I like that.
Making sure that those that are in need of food are getting that food. We have ACS, which makes sure that people within the immediate locality of a congregation that is Adventist will get that kind of assistance. But in a broader scale, Meals on Wheels feeds lots of people. We've got ADRA. That one is working nationally, where we're making sure that where there is disaster, the church steps in. Of course, we galvanize and we get money from all sorts of donors, and we put those monies in one bag, if you like, and then we make sure that it is dispersed evenly across the country, meeting those needs. So that's how the church is supposed to be dealing with the needs that we find in the community. Of course, as I said, even the local church has a role to play in the immediate territory, where they also make sure that people are helped, those that are in need. Now, let me come back now to the ones that we may be having within the church. Those that may be saying, we do not have income, therefore we can't be giving offerings any longer. God does not expect us to give when we have nothing. He expects us to give from what we have received. That's what He is expecting from us. So the church now, what it does, it makes sure that it also supports those that are within the church. They also are supported by being shown projects they can do. We have programs that talks to them about investment, starting businesses, what they can do, so that they are able to put food on the table.
Just my last question to you, Mfundisi. I've heard the structures, I've seen the structures, we've explained them. Here am I, hit by the pandemic, COVID-19. I've lost my job. How do I, as a church member, access this valuable information of Unika Ayona? How do I make sure that I benefit from the church? Because I've been giving tithe, I've been giving offering, and now the pandemic has hit me, I'm not working. How can I access?
This is where being a member of a church comes in a brilliant way. Because in the church, you will have leaders that are leading you. You will have a Dorcas person, you will have an Adventist men's leader, you will have your elder that you need to inform that you are having this kind of a situation. Then the church, using its structures, is then able to assist you, leading you even up to the head office in Port Elizabeth, or the regional office, if it's the regional office is closest to you, where you are able then to be linked with people that will be able to make sure that you have the assistance and the information you need.
I'm not an Adventist. How can I access this?
Then you are
Is
not
it meant for Adventists only?
No, not necessarily. You are not an Adventist. There are numbers that are always being flighted, even in this program. You get in touch with us using those numbers, or in your territory where you are, or area where you are. There are Adventist ministers. You may see them in funerals. You may see them in outreach that they are doing. You speak to any of those. You alert them of your situation. You will definitely get assistance.
Thank you, Pastor Fume, for coming to share your knowledge with us. We are really blessed and we are grateful for that. To the viewers at home, there you are. You've heard exactly what the church is. You've heard how the church can assist people when they are in dire situation and they are in trouble. Obviously, for the church to be able to do that, we need you as a member, we need you as a viewer to support the church and to be faithful. And to those who are in need of anything, we will try and do our best as a church to assist you within the limits that we have. But I want to encourage all our members to be faithful in supporting the church for this great cause. Till we meet next time, don't go away. We're going for a short break. Welcome back to Rays of Hope Masikhanye. This week we're busy talking about economic and legal issues related to the pandemic. With me, I've got Pamela Melapi, who is going to talk to us about the legal issues with or during the pandemic. Welcome, Ms. Melapi.
Thank you very much, Doc.
Usukapi, where's home?
Okay. Home is in Eastern Cape. I was born and bred in the former Transkei at Tsomo. And then I did Standard A up to Standard 7. And then I went to PE and I did up to Matric. After Matric, then I did BProc at the Vista University. After BProc, then I did my articles in PE. When I was doing my articles, I went on to do honors in labor law. From there on, I went to Northern Cape and I came down to Cape Town. Currently, I'm working for the Office of the State Attorney and the Department of Justice.
Jean, Mumkaya, you are my home girl. Even though you are from Tsomo, but there's something that connects me and you, which is Port Elizabeth. How do you relate law or legal issues with Christianity? There is a perception that if you are a lawyer, then you cannot be committed as a Christian. How do you relate those two?
Being a lawyer, I remember the South African law, you need to do an LLB degree, which is 4 years. It's only offered by the universities. And then after 4 years, then you will do other 2 years for 2 years as a candidate attorney. And after 2 years, then you will be admitted as an attorney. The relevance of law as a Christian, law is very broad. Law is very broad. You can be any attorney. You can be attorney for criminal matters where you represent the accused at court. You can be an attorney specializing in intellectual law, specializing in marine law, specializing in aviation law, specializing in disease estate, specializing in labor law. Now, where I specialize on labor law, employer and employee relationship. That's where is my specialty. So as a Christian, you can do any type of law that you want to do. After you finish your articles, you're admitted, then you can go to any avenue. Whether you want to be a criminal, whether you want to be a diseased estate. Now, when it comes to Christianity, any field, if there's any case presented before you and you are not comfortable with that, you've got a right to say, I'm not comfortable in doing this type of case, and then someone else will take it. Coming back to your question, as a Christian, you can you can do any type of law that you are comfortable with. It's not that if you're not comfortable with criminal law or rape or anything, then you are bound to do that. You've got a right to say, this is not me, I'm not comfortable to do this, then you will venture to any other thing.
I like that. So in other words, you make a choice, you have your principles, and you decide what you want to do. Thanks. So this is what you do as a person who works for the state. Now, I'm quite interested in labor law issues, and fortunately, you said you work with labor matters. Now, during this pandemic, there's a lot of labor impact and labor law issues that have come up. Can someone be dismissed for having COVID-19?
Thank you, Doc. Before an employer embarks on dismissal, the Labor Relations Act of 1996 stipulates 3 things that the employer can dismiss one. One is misconduct, second one is incapacity, the third one is for operational reasons. By operational reasons, we mean economical, technological. The third one is operational requirements. Now, when we talk about operational requirements, we're talking about the structure, the economy, and really that the employer cannot be able to function. As a result of that, then they can embark on dismissal. Now, the first one, misconduct, is when the employee has done something wrong. Now, when it comes to COVID, the COVID one that is related to incapacity, because the employee was sick for long, then is unable to go back and work.
When you say someone can be dismissed for misconduct or incapacity or operational requirements, I'm just interested in incapacity. What do you mean? For incapacity. Can you explain to us?
Thank you, Doc. I-incapacity ithetha into yoba awuzokwazi ukuya emsebenzini wenze lento uqeshelwe ukuyenza ngoba uyagula. That's what it means in a nutshell.
Okay.
Now, xa ugula ke funeka uxelele umqeshi wakho into yoba mqeshi ndiyagula. It's either by if unayo i-medical certificate uyithumele. But if kuthe kwenzeka into yoba awuna medical certificate, but you need to advise your employer that employer, I'm unable to come to work because I'm sick.
So you don't just stay at home?
No. Whether you've got COVID or you've got anything, you need to advise your employer that you are unable to come to work. Now, when it comes to COVID, remember regulations by the Minister of Employment and Labor, and also by the Minister of Cooperative Governance. Later, it was 14 days, and then it changed to 10 days. Now, the employers, the organization are facing a challenge whereby employee will be off sick, but then after the period of 10 days at home, ubuya abene problems more. Some is lungs, some is everything. Then when you are supposed to come back after 10 days and you're still not feeling well, you're supposed to advise your employer that you are not feeling well. Okay? The third one, operational requirements, is whether our employer can retrench. Where employer will say, I'm unable to run with this organization because COVID made it impossible for me to operate. Now the question is, what does that employer do? Remember, during level 5 and still even level 3, some employees were at home. Now the employer will check on the finances and see if really can the employer proceed with running the organization. In instances whereby the employer see that it's impossible to run with a business. Now the Labor Relations Section 189 says what is a procedure to be followed. Then the employer, in a nutshell, the employer then must advise the employees how. That process is called a consultation. how do you consult with the employees at home? There's e-unions. And currently there's mode of communication, either via emails for those that are not part of the union, or by even SMSs to say to the employees, we have to go through this process of retrenchment. But there must be a reason, and it must be communicated to the employees. Yes, employees can be retrenched during COVID. Thank you.
There's been a lot of noise about working from home and some people demanding to work from home. Do we have the right to work at home as employees?
Remember, as an employee, you need to provide the service. And as I said previously, the regulations are saying the employer must make sure that the employer's organization complies with the regulations. If you as an employee are saying, I don't want to come to work, you need to give reasons. You can't stay at home and say, I'm not coming. If employer agana sanitizer, the place is not ready, then you need to say that in writing, so that the employer is given a chance to reply. This is what I've done. The workplace is ready. The workplace is COVID ready for people to come and work.
Let's talk about this sick leave during the time of COVID. How is it regulated? What shall we do as employees?
Okay, thank you. E-employees, remember, e-leave is regulated by Basic Conditions of Employment Act, which states for the leaves, it depends on the organization. One organization will have 12 days a year, but for the government, the sick leave is 36 days for every 3-year cycle. So if you are sick, other organizations, it depends, as I said, it depends on the organization. Like in government, there's a leave that is placed to say you are entitled to your COVID leave. It's called COVID sick leave. But even then, even in other organizations, they're supposed to comply with the COVID regulations by Minister Zuma. That says a person has to be at home for 10 days in order to after 10 days, they say after 10 days it's not infectious. But then if you are still not feeling well, after 10 days, you need to advise the employer that I'm still not feeling well, and then you need to produce a certificate. The other thing that was a challenge was when it comes to the maids that are working, domestic workers, where you'll find that your domestic worker is COVID positive, and she is still in his or her own place. Now the question is whether must you pay that employee that is COVID positive at home not working? The Act says that you have to pay that person, even though the person is not working. Now it goes back whether can you retrench that person. It goes back to retrenchment. Then it goes back to the Section 189. What is the reason? Why do you want to retrench that person? Why do you want to retrench that domestic worker? So in a nutshell, what I'm saying is that whether a person is working in a bigger organization, whether a person is a domestic worker, if the person is off sick, whether with COVID or not, you're supposed to pay in terms of the Act.
What I hear very clearly is that communication between the employer and the employee is very vital, especially during this time of COVID, because if we don't communicate well, either from the employer's side or from the employee's side, then this becomes a problem. I think there's a lot of misunderstanding there, and empathy needs to come in there as well, and support for each other is quite important. Now, I just want to know from you, if I am retrenched or I lose my job for one reason and another because of COVID-related issues or COVID-related illnesses, what redress do I have? What should I do?
Thank you, Doc. As an employee, your recourse is to lodge a dispute. Depending on the sector where you are, it's either it falls under CCMA or it falls under any tribunal within your space of field. And when you lodge a dispute, you just complete the form and you email. And then you'll be called for your hearing. So you've got a right to lodge a dispute. And in the forms that you're completing, you can say, what do you want? Do you want to go back or do you want to be compensated? Now the Act stipulates as to how much will you be allowed if you are dismissed.
So it means even there you still need to say exactly how you feel and why are you aggrieved and why do you want your work back or why do you want money or what happened. And then you say it depends on where you are, what sector you are in, either you fall under a jurisdiction, CCMA or not, where you can go and have all these things. It's very important for us to understand that. And the Abulel Buzil was a statusel. Any final word of viewers zethu?
If you are at home, what I will say is that as an employee, you've got a right. If you are not happy, you've got a recourse. CCMA and bargaining councils are free of charge. Go to them. You don't need an attorney. You just have to state your dispute in writing, and that's it.
Thanks a lot, Ms. Melapi, for coming and sharing your knowledge with us who are greatly enlightened now. And thank you once more for coming. To our viewers at home, you've heard exactly what we have been discussing throughout this session. And we hope that you will take whatever we have discussed and be rays of hope for others who experience the same thing. Remember, let us shine and be light wherever we are. Rays of hope, Masikhanye, throughout this week. If you've got questions or anything that you want us to assist with, the numbers appear on the screen. If you want us to pray for you or you've got other questions that you want us to answer, we have our email on the screen as well. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. May He shine His face upon you till we meet next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.